Have you ever wanted to turn your ideas into 3D models? Well, I'm going to show you the basics of how to do that. First, we're going to start with the sketch tool. Once you have the sketch tool selected, you get to choose which plane you're going to sketch on. So I'm just going to pick the bottom plane here. Up here you have all of your tools. You also have the drop down here, which has more in-depth tools or different variations of all the tools that you might see above. We're probably just going to start out with something simple like the rectangle tool. However, I'd like to show you that the rectangle tool goes corner to corner. And sometimes we like to start out with the datum or that middle point right in the center. So we're going to delete this and we're going to go up to that drop down menu. And then we can go to rectangles and do a center rectangle. So with this, we can now easily drag from the center point and we can choose what the dimensions are going to be for this. You can simply hit tab to jump to the next dimension and fill it in. So now we have our basic sketch sitting right here, but how do we make it 3D? First, we're going to finish the sketch, and then we're going to utilize our extrude tool. The shortcut for extrude is the E key, so you can either select it or you can press E and then highlight the surface that you want if it's not already selected. Then you'll be asked to input a dimension, and this is going to be the thickness of the part that you want. So we're just going to make a 30 by 30 cube. If you're new to 3D softwares, it's usually a combination of Shift, Control, and Alt, how you do different navigations with different mouse clicks. So you can kind of play around with it and get familiar with how that moves around. Now that we have a 3D object, we can actually select a face and then sketch onto that face directly instead of one of the basic datums that we were sketching from before. So I'm going to take a circle and show you some of the constraints that you can apply to your sketches. All the constraints do is kind of determine how things can move. So if something's fully constrained, it can't move at all, and the sketch will show up black, and we'll see that here in a second. So you could dimension, say, all of these circles to be the same individually, or you can use these constraints up here. So we take the equal tool and set this circle equal to that one, the next one equal to this one, and make sure that they're all constrained together so that they're all the same size. This makes it so we only need to change one circle's dimension. So you can press D on the keyboard, or you can go up here and go to Sketch Dimensions. And this is where you can apply different dimensions to your sketch. So I'm just going to set them all to 7. So you can see all of the circles size themselves to 7. Next, we're going to take the center point of the circle and constrain it to the side. So we can determine how far from the edge we want this circle to be. I'm going to choose 6 on center. So 6 to the center of the circle. Now instead of setting this one to 6, I'm going to constrain that dimension to the 6 over here by selecting it while I'm putting in the dimension, hit enter. So now when I change that dimension, it'll also change this dimension over here. Now you can see when I try to move this circle, no matter how far left and right I go, it's locked in at 6 away from that edge because it's constrained in that direction. Because the center circle was placed on the datum in the middle, it's actually locked to that point. So it's already fully constrained, which is why it shows up black. Rather than putting a whole bunch of dimensions on here, we can also use constraints like horizontal and vertical to lock these in the same position. And you can see that symbol, it's saying that it's locked horizontally with the other circle. So as I move them up and down, they move together. I can also do the same thing to lock this circle in. So let's lock that vertically with this one. We'll go do this to the other side as well. And I accidentally had the other circle selected, so we're gonna Control Z to undo that. Go up here and select our tool again, lock these into place. So now those are constrained vertically. However, in the horizontal direction, we still need to lock them in. So you can see these can still move together because we're not constrained from the bottom edge. So we can select here, lock it, and we can set it to that 6 if we want it to be even, to either one of these really. So we're gonna hit enter. You can see the top 2 circles are still blue, so you can grab and move those and see where it's not dimensioned properly. And again, from the top edge, we're not dimensioned, so we're gonna set that again equal to the same dimension over here. Now that everything is black and fully constrained, we can go and finish the sketch. So now that we have the sketch on the surface, what can we do with it? Well, one of the most basic things that you can do is cut it. So to do that, we're going to use again the extrude tool. So either click the extrude tool, you can press E, but then we're going to select all of these faces. Once we have all the faces selected, we'll again be prompted to give a dimension. You can also drag this arrow back and forth rather than setting a dimension, or you can set it directly. The red indicates that it's going to cut. So down here is a very important piece too. These indicate all of the steps that you've taken. So every extrude we've done, every sketch we've made, it highlights it down here. So this is our main cube that we did. You can go into any of these, right click and do edit sketch, edit feature, edit whatever you want. So let's go back to editing our cut feature here. You can also see that it won't show that it's extruding. That's because by default it put it to cut because we tried going inward into the surface. Sometimes it's smart about it, other times you have to click join to make it actually grow, or you can make a new component within the sketch. It just depends on how you want to handle it. Most of the time join or cut works just fine. So another thing that you can do is go to the end of the surface that you want to extrude through and click on it, and it'll actually just automatically put in the right dimension to extrude it. Also, you can do to object, that way in case your dimensions change, it'll still extrude to that face every time. Most of these tools, when you open them, will have different options, so you can look at those and play around. In this case, we can do distance, taper, angle. But let's go back to object and look at the offset tool. So this is another interesting way to keep your dimensions, say 2 millimeters from that face at all times, even if dimensions change. So now our holes don't go all the way through, but rather if we measure them with the inspect tool, are 2 millimeters from the end because of the way that we did that. So that's a very useful tool if you're making like a shell or something like that, which we can do here in a minute. You also have the ability later on to just press E and extrude any of these faces. So let's say I want this center hole to go all the way through. I can press E, highlight that face, and say whatever, do the last 2, go all the way through. So now I have a through hole in the center, but the other ones go all the way up to 2 millimeters from the edge. So they're not all the way through, but the center hole is. So now on a separate face, I'm going to show you another tool that can make things quicker. So first let's start with the sketch, and we're going to basically make this hollowed out. So we're going to start with a rectangle. We can just do a 2-point and just place a square or rectangle anywhere in here. And we're going to set the dimensions of the outside so that we can kind of make this a shell. So let's just do 3 millimeters. And we're going to do another 3, but we're going to set it here so that if we ever wanted to come back, we can just change that one dimension. We're going to do it for all of these. And now we're just going to go ahead and finish the sketch. So now we can go ahead and select that center point with our extrude tool by pressing E. And we're going to set it to 2 millimeters from the edge, or 3 millimeters rather, -3. So you can kind of see the idea here. We kind of have a shell. However, there's a better way to do it. So we're going to select these 2 down here, right click, delete. So let's see the better way to do it. We're going to go up here to our modify and select the shell command. Click on the surface that you want to be open and type in the dimension that you want. Hang on a second. It looks like the old sketch that we had on the other surface with the extrusions is interfering, so let's cancel that. I think the best way to move forward is probably going to be to get rid of this, so let's select these 2 things in the bottom left and delete those with the delete key. And then we have this extrusion that kind of no longer you can also see that it was yellow because there's no longer a true constraint that it's tied to, since we went from an extrusion that no longer exists. So let's remove that by clicking the delete key. Now we can go forward with our shell command and see what it truly should look like. So let's select any face on the box, type in the wall size, and now you can see we just have a box. If we take our inspect tool to measure, we can do both of these faces, and it checks out, it is 3 millimeters. We can also use our inspect tool to check the bottom, just to verify that all sides are 3 millimeters. So, yep, that looks good. So this is great. Now we have a box. If you wanted to make this box with a 3D printer or something, you could put stuff in it. Great, but it's not that pretty. So we got tools up here in the modify, like the fillet command. We also have chamfers. It allows you to select edges or faces to round them, so you can give things a bit of a nicer look, a more sleek appearance. First, you select all the edges that you want, and then you can put in the size. So we can do 1, 2, 3, or whatever you like most. But oh no, we missed a face, right? So if we go back, we can either do a new fillet here, or we can right click down here in the bottom left, edit the feature, and then in this case, it won't let you just select it. You have to hold the control key, and then it allows you to add more edges or faces, or deselect them to remove them from other areas. So you can also go on the inside and select some of these surfaces. Alternatively, if you want all of the surfaces to be rounded, you can select the entire face that you want. So if we select all these faces, it'll round every edge connected to that face. So sometimes this can be a quicker way to do it if that's what you want. So we're just gonna go ahead and, ooh, no, not that. The tool can sometimes act funny, especially when you're using larger radiuses like this. So we're not gonna select that face. If we wanted to do that, we could bump it down to half the distance, so 1.5, and then it won't have that same effect. So this is if we do 1.5 on both sides. You also have the option to set back, which you can see kind of changes the way that curves are handled. Usually I just leave it on rolling ball. These are just the general ideas of how to get started. I'm happy to do more tutorials. Please leave a comment if you have any struggles or want to see anything else. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.